that prices are out of control, rents are sky high, and the reason for this is because, oh my god, the evil developers, they're building so much, but they're keeping prices up, even though, again, that is not how supply and demand works. Again, these people are essentially...
اسمعوا يا صوماليين، اسمعوا، انتوا اللي ارتفعتوا الاجارات، طالعوهم، طلعوا من هوني من عنا، احسن ما ترى نعمل مشاكل بامريكا وندمركم. السلام عليكم، مرحبا، كيفكم؟ شو الاخبار؟ معكم عبيدة كلاسم، جبنا لكم فيديو جديد ان شاء الله ينال اعجابكم. اليوم يا جماعه باذن الله تعالى راح ننزل فيديوهات يوميه فيديوهين. بتمنى منكم تشتركوا بالقناه وتفعلوا الجرس وتشاركوا الفيديو لحتى يرتفع الفيديوهات. الله يسعدكم وترجع التفاعل مثل قبل. بدنا نشوف طبعا يا جماعه الدنيا حابكه بمنتابوليس. انا ما فهمان قصه بالمشرمحي مثل ما بيقولوا يعني عندنا بالسوري، بس بدنا نشوف شو القصة المضبوطة. طبعا هي منتابوليس، ما بعرف ولاية وين هي بالصومال، ما بعرف. طبعا يا جماعة بدنا نشوف الفيديو ونعطي ردة فعلنا عليه. لا تنسوا الاشتراك، تفعيل الجرس، لايك، دعم، شاركوا الفيديو مع اصدقائكم، مع العائلة، وين ما كان، لحتى يرتفع الفيديو يشوف غيركم. قولوا لي منتابوليس وين بتكون موجودة لحتى اعرف كمان. شوف الفيديو بنقول بسم الله. الله بسم الله.
Has a mayoral race going on. On one side of the mayoral race, you have a long-serving Democratic politician that has fallen out of favor with the woke media and the left-wing activists, running up against a Muslim Democratic socialist who is trying to push the issue of affordability. Now, of course, if this sounds like Zohran Mamdani for the mayor's race of the city of New York, that makes sense. Obviously, this parallel is very noticeable, but in reality, what we're talking
طبعا كأنه بين مسلم ويساري وهالأمور هي.
About today is Omar Fatah, who is running against Jacob Frey in the city of Minneapolis on a DSA agenda about, of course, rent stabilization and rent control due to the fact that there is a horrible affordability crisis happening in the city of Minneapolis. However, while you can...
الصوماليين والله بحقر أمريكا، الصوماليين يستحوذون على ولاية كأنه أنا حاسة بأمريكا، صح الكلام ولا لا؟ مدينة منتابوليس، يعني ما بعرف، منتابوليس بدي ابحث عنها كمان. اكتبوا لي بالتعليقات هي بأمريكا والمترشح صومالي لحتى يحكم ولايته. ما بعرف، اكتبوا لي بالتعليقات، بس هذا اللي فهمته وهذا الشيء رائع. دخيل رب الصوماليين.
Look at the betting odds for the Andrew Cuomo versus Mamdani New York mayoral's race and see that Mamdani is the clear and overwhelming favorite. When you shift over to the city of Minneapolis, what you ultimately end up finding out is that Omar Fatah, running on the same exact platform, trying to use that Muslim energy with, by the way, an even more Islamic population. There's a reason why Minneapolis is called oftentimes Little Mogadishu. In fact, he is of Somali origin, which the state of Minnesota has changed their own state flag to look more like the Somali flag, and yet when you see the odds...
لك حتى تغيير العلم يا ويلي، لك والله العظيم شغلة كتير كبيرة. والله الفخر للشعب الصومالي العظيم. طبعا لهيك صاير المشاكل. أصبح أنا فهمت الزبدة. صاير المشاكل إنه صومالي بولاية بده يحكم ولاية كاملة. هذا الشيء يعني أغضبهم جميعا. ليش أغضبهم؟ اكتبوا لي بالتعليقات.
For yourself, what you ultimately end up realizing is that the bettors are saying that Jacob Frey has a 75 to 80% chance of winning this mayoralship for a third term, and I think it's important for us to actually address why that is, because while a lot of people are running at Zohran Mamdani in the city of New York on the issue of Israel, of all things, a foreign government, when we're talking about a domestic political position, or they're going after him for being Muslim, which a lot of people are doing so, Jacob Frey has a completely different tactic. He's going after Omar
المسلم شوكة بحلقون وين ما راح. سبحانك يا رب.
Fatah on facts on his affordability agenda, and what he's actually demonstrating is that if you have good governing policies in this area, you can ward off these radical socialist challengers, and this is what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel. Via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
For the last 8 years, we've listened to a mayor answer questions around affordable housing with only one answer: build more and more and more. And in those same 8 years, we've only seen your rents and property taxes go up and up and up. And I agree, we do need to build more. But the truth is, to address the housing needs in Minneapolis, we need to do more than just build.
لحظة.
We also need to stabilize rents, prevent rental evictions, treat homelessness as a public health emergency, and create pathways to homeownership. And when elected, I'm committed to using every tool in the toolbox to address the problem, because we deserve a mayor that's committed to solutions, not just sound bites.
So one of the things that you really need to...
والله كلامه منطقي وكلامه رائع، يعني عم بيصب بصالح يعني الجميع، يعني بده حد بالآجارات وهالأمور هي، يعني بما إنه هن عم بيقولوا عن الآجارات غليت بسبب الصوماليين وبسبب هالأمور هي، عم نحد منها.
understand about Omar Fatah is that he's actually stupid. He's actually not smart at all. He's actually an absolute idiot in every possible way. And no, I'm not saying that because he's Somali and he has an eerie resemblance to, of course, the Somali pirate from the Captain Phillips movie, because that guy actually was a man with a plan, and in reality, taking a ship hostage
غبي الله يدي الأغبياء.
in order to extort money from people in order to get the release of the ship is a logical plan, unlike what Omar Fatah has. Now, you just
يعني
saw
طيب
right there...
شو جاب هاي لهي؟ جايبي لي قرصان على، يعني ما بعرف يعني ليش عم تخلط الأمور ببعضها ماني عارفة.
video that he is running hard on the affordability agenda. He's saying Jacob Frey has promised to get the cost of housing down in the city of Minneapolis, but in reality, his strategy of just build doesn't work. What we need to do is shift to rent control and rent stabilization, because that will be the solution to the affordability crisis. And of course, what he cites as his evidence is the fact that rent is going up dramatically each and every year in the city of Minneapolis. So if building more supply actually ended up addressing the housing crisis, we would see those results in said price up.
والله هي شاعلة، هي شاعلة صايرة، فتيلة شاعلة. الله يحميكم يا أهل الصومال، والله هيك يقدرني ادعمكم كمان.
Of rent and not have a housing crisis. And the thing is, this sounds logical, this sounds intuitive. A lot of different progressives are trying to cheer on Omar Fatah, but he happens to be 100% dead ass wrong on this issue, because guess
ليش
what?
مخطئ 100% يا حبيبي؟ قل لي ليش مخطئ.
Prices of rent are falling in the city of Minneapolis, and one need only look at these two charts to understand why. So what you have right here on the left side of this chart is the number of housing units built in comparable Midwestern cities, with Minneapolis at the top, followed by Omaha, followed by Columbus, Kansas City, Cincinnati, and Indianapolis. And what you can see is that these cities were pretty consistent in their building up until about 2020, 2021, when Minneapolis engaged in their zoning reform, thus making it significantly easier to build more apartments, build more triplexes, and of course, build more units without going through an extensive permitting process. Now, according to the Muslim Democratic Socialist candidate Omar Fatah, rents have still risen in the city of Minneapolis, and the only solution, the only thing that needs to be implemented in response to this is, of course, rent control / rent stabilization in order to actually bring prices down. Again, he said it for himself. But the thing is, the other half of this chart is quite telling, because it gives you the rent increases versus decreases as compared to 2017 levels.
يعني what كل هالضجة واللوشة انه ما بدهم مسلم ويحكم وهي بس مشان الاجارات، يعني والله العظيم يعني فعليا في شيء اسمه جنان حلي.
Find out is that Minneapolis, the city that built the most, has by far the fastest reducing rent. And what's crazy about this particular chart is what it actually says is that in terms of real dollars, inflation adjusted dollars, rent has actually fallen in the city of Minneapolis since 2017 by 20%. 20% reduction in rent compared to 2017. Now, of course, they did lose population during COVID. The Black Lives Matter riots obviously drove people away, so obviously you see an impact of that. However, they are gaining back some population, and while that is currently happening, you could see that, of course, rents are still reducing. Minneapolis is becoming more and more affordable because they're allowing more and more building. And of course, this is directly contrary to what Omar Fatah is trying to tell people, which of course is that prices are out of control, rents are sky high, and the reason for this is because, oh my god, the evil developers, they're building so much, but they're keeping prices up, even though, again, that is not how supply and demand works. Again, these people are essentially...
اسمعوا يا صوماليين، اسمعوا، انتوا اللي ارتفعتوا الاجارات، طالعوهم، طلعوا من هوني من عنا، احسن ما ترى نعمل مشاكل بامريكا وندمركم. ترى طلعوا من امريكا احسن ما نفجركم. ترى طلعوا حاجه بقالي تغلونا الاجارات وتغلونا الامور، هاي حاجه.
The economic flat earthers. These people are absolute idiots. If they knew anything about the economy, they would not be socialists. So we're watching an absolute idiot.
انت عقلك مسطح، مو هن المؤمنين بعقلهم الارض مسطحه، ما بعرف شو يعني، كلام ما منطقي، يعني تافه كلامه.
Get all the support from the left-wing base. They're trying to juice this guy up, a la Zohran Mamdani, when in reality, it couldn't be more clear that on the issue of housing, Jacob Frey is the guy who should be the candidate and who should win the election for the city of Minneapolis. If this is your number one issue, let's be real, this guy has presided over a reduction in rents through policy that, by the way, is far less costly than rent control, rent stabilization, or this obsession with building public housing everywhere at the taxpayer expense. You basically paid nothing, you allowed developers to develop, and guess what? Your citizens reap the benefits of that development. And by the way, I say this as somebody who is no fan of Jacob Frey in other regards. I mean, he is essentially an off-brand, more bitch-made version of Justin Trudeau, and of course, this is the same guy who is crying at the golden casket at George Floyd's funeral, and of course was humiliated multiple different times during the Black Lives Matter riots, and he's pathetic in every possible way except on this issue. Essentially, you have off-brand Trudeau versus the off-brand Somali pirate in this election, but in reality, people are responding to the reduction in rents by realizing that Omar Fatah is in fact...
انتوا يا صوماليين يا قراصنة، طلعوا من امريكا، ها انتوا عم ترفعوا الاجارات، طلعوا يا قراصنة، طلعوا خلصوني.
a charlatan. He has nothing to offer. And by the way, this should have been a lesson for Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa, who did not run right at Zohran Mamdani's affordability agenda, because make no mistake about it, Omar Fatah and Zohran Mamdani are the same person with the same policy.
والله العظيم ضحكتني يا جماعة، والله يعني عن جد شيء مضحك. لا أنا لهون حاجة بعد صدت نفسي على شفت الفيديو بصراحة، يعني كلام مو منطقي، كلام عنصري، كلام يعني ما حبيت. انتوا اكتبوا بالتعليقات شلون الوضع عندكم، شلون منتابوليس هلا حاليا. ان شاء الله ما في شيء، ان شاء الله اموركم كويسه. تحيه كبيره لكم. طيب طبعا يا جماعه هي ولايه بامريكا، صح الكلام؟ يعني انا هذا عرفته. اذا عجبكم الفيديو اعطونا لايك واشتركوا بالقناه، شاركوا الفيديو مع اصدقائكم، واعطوني رايكم بهالمنتابوليس، شو صاير، شو الوضع، لحتى ننزل فيديوهات كمان ونسكت هيك اشخاص كمان. كان معكم عبيد كلاس، والسلام عليكم ورحمه الله.
opaidhemad فوق هيك المعنى عم فهمك، ما بتهمك بالغباء، بس الفشل فيكن داء، خلق امل ودواء، فما بفكر فيكن لا. بديت من الصفر، ما حدا معي كمل، فكروني ما رح وصل، بس لكني بالقمة انا صرت فوق، قاعد فين عم اتامل. هلا الكل صار يحبني بس لاني صرت الاول.